Being that it's 5:30 and seeing a quorum, we will officially call this meeting to order. So welcome everyone. Jack, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jack. Our next item is to adopt the agenda. You should all have a copy of that. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Parrish, second by Jack. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Next, we need to have an approval of the minutes of the July 22nd, 24 meeting. May I have a motion to approve those minutes, please?
So moved.
Jay, and a second?
Second.
Jack? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried and granted. All right, into old business. Our first item is the Downtown Live recap. And without further ado, Mr. Cornelius, will you please give us the recap?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had 4 events this year, starting in May, running through August. The May attendance was 5,800. We have data, I guess I should preface this by saying we have data through a partnership with Georgia Power, and they give us information based on anonymized cell phone data. What that means is anybody's phone that has a weather app or any app that uses GPS data, they can collect information on where that phone is, not about who the person is or what they do with their phone, but just about their location. And share that with a platform that then aggregates all of that data together and can give us some information about how many people have visited an area within a certain span of time and where they came from, where they went afterwards. And there's some other demographic data that's associated with that. I will point out that all of that data that we received from Georgia Power is public. We published that on our shared Google Drive, and I'm happy to share the link with anyone who's interested. So in May, we had 5,800 attendees. The average dwell time, which is how long they were on Main Street or in that general vicinity, was 139 minutes. The peak time was 8 p.m. In June, we had 4,900 attendees with an average dwell time of 149 minutes. Again, the peak time was 8 p.m. In July, 4,800 attendees. The dwell time was 157 minutes. Again, peak time was 8 p.m. August, 4,700 attendees, 162-minute dwell time, and peak time was again at 8 p.m. The peak time comes as no surprise because that's when the headlining act was performing, so it's no surprise that that's when most people were there. It's interesting that the number of attendees dropped over the season, but the amount of time that people spent on Main Street rose over the course of the season. Someone asked me a question earlier about do we have any idea of the economic impact, and we do not get revenue numbers from the businesses on Main Street. We would love to be able to get that information, but obviously it's their discretion on whether they want to share that with us. So we do not know the direct economic impact, although we can guess that it's probably pretty significant. As for the finances for Downtown Live, we collected, grand total in income, we collected $81,519, and we spent $49,545. So we have a budget surplus of $32,973, which is pretty significant. That was achieved through 2 things. Very successful fundraising, lots of wonderful sponsors. We've had 25 sponsors who were very generous this year. I can't list them all right now, but they should be listed on the website, and they've been listed in various other places, our social media and so on. The city of Jasper was gracious enough to give us $22,000 to get started. And then we raised $12,751.80 in vendor fees. That number is a little bit off, and I shouldn't say off, it's not round number because of the credit card fees for some of the vendors who paid online through credit card. The breakdown of expenses is $35,388 were on entertainment. That includes the bands and the stage rental. $7,187 was for security. That's for the off-duty police officers that were assisting us with public safety. $3,200 in marketing and $1,400 in advertising. That is social media outlets and advertising in the local papers. I think that includes the Pickens Progress, No Pickens, and maybe some other outlets. And then $2,360 in supplies. That includes the ice that we provided to the vendors and a couple other minor things that we needed to supply for vendors. I think there was additional electrical cabling for the generator and so forth. So again, grand total of income, $81,519. Total of expenses, $49,545.25, leaving us with $32,973.75. That brings us to the overall financial report. This data is accurate through Thursday of last week. It was provided to us by the City of Jasper Department of Finance. Lindsay has been a great help in helping us keep track of all of these things. She's certainly been very supportive and responsive, and many thanks to her. So total, we've had things not listed on Downtown Live. We've had maintenance of $8,950. That goes to mostly to Hemlocks for maintaining all of the streetscapes. We've had some legal fees related to just helping us understand some of the things related to how we operate the DDA, and then some other minor expenses. So grand total for the year, the sum of deposits, money that we have received, is $81,813.03. And the grand total of expenses is $58,990.25, leaving us with a balance of $22,822.78. And since we do have a balance in the bank, the next thing to discuss is how we intend to use that balance. There's been some discussion about the best use of those funds, and I think that leads us into some discussion about budgeting. My belief is that we need to form a budget committee and spend some time discussing that and bring forth some suggestions to council or to this board, and then discuss how that we might need to involve the city in further budgeting processes. So with that, I'd like to open discussion to the rest of the board and see what progress we can make here today.
I would like to go ahead and formally pass that on to Sonny to update us on the city's plan for the budgeting process as we move forward, please.
Thank you, Amy. So as we continue to formalize not only the City of Jasper's operation, but also our contribution to the Development Authority, Downtown Development Authority, we are instituting a process this year, which is, it's going to come across as maybe putting a little pressure on people much earlier than what we're used to. But I think in the long term, it'll have a great impact, particularly on the DDA. So we've begun our budget talks internally already for the year 2025, and as we work through that, we're meeting with our directors and so forth and so on. What we will be doing in late September, actually probably the last week of September, is we will be reaching out beforehand to talk to our key stakeholders who we have historically supported in any way, shape, or form. And we will be asking for a proposed budget. And ultimately that should will evolve into a line item budget. And then that will go before a committee of council members and ultimately be incorporated into our budget for the next year. So there are a couple things specific to the DDA that I think I want to touch on. This gives you an opportunity to plan ahead, expect what our year is going to look like next year, and then ask for money for things both contained within our entertainment season as well as possible other things. And Amy and Kirk, Mayor Radfield met with me today, or we met together, and we mentioned just a few of the things. It kind of expands the horizon of what potentially can be done. The DDA has the city as its governing body, and really it's the only one of our people that we kind of support that technically is under our leadership. There are a couple of other organizations that have direct responsibility to the city. One of those is the Housing Authority, the Planning and Zoning. And so that, I think what this will do is help us focus our expectation and our needs a little sooner. It needs to be as scientific as we can possibly make it, but at the same time, you hear about a budget, and of course by law the city's required to have a balanced budget. We can always do budget amendments. So if you come up with a plan based on what your expectations are and there's a shortfall, then we can always go back and do it, a formal presentation for a budget amendment. The other benefits of this, there was some confusion about who the DDA should support and should you support other organizations. And I think this is going to kind of clear this out. And so I'm excited about the process. I know that's probably a little quicker than what ideally you'd want to do, but again, we have to have our budget approved by the council before the end of the year, and so it is a little aggressive, but I think that you're going to find the staff is amenable to working with you in a totally different environment than it's been in the past. So that's that process. I also think it's great that we've had a good year. I mean, this is an exciting time for us. When we talked so many years ago about an entertainment season and things like Perrow Park, it's taken 8 or 10 years of planning to get us to this point. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that in the Perrow Park part. But if anybody has any questions about that process, I'd be glad to answer them.
Is it your recommendation that, what Jay suggested, that we form a committee here on the DDA to deal with that budgeting process?
I think, I would think that would be a good thing, and I will tell you that I would be honored to serve on that committee for a couple of reasons. Number one, I am the city's representative, and also, so I have influence there. Again, it's a team, and I'm only one vote. But in the review process, our leadership in other areas has changed a little bit to, one of the things that's hard for the city as compared to our counterparts at the county is that our council makes our decisions for us. And sometimes that can be a little cumbersome. So Mr. Douglas, our city manager, has come up with a way where we can actually preview some information without having a quorum. And so rather than things being dismissed or brushed aside, they get direct attention. And then if we feel like it's something that we need to move on, then we can do that a little quicker. I think the perfect example is the T-Splosh. So we met with Commissioner Stansel, and really within 10 days we were able to pull together an effort for the T-Splosh. And what that does for us is it takes monies that typically would come from the general fund, and there'll be a dedicated pocket of money that we can use just for bridges, roads, sidewalks, culverts, overpasses. And that may play into some other things that we have going on too, but that just preserves that money for the general fund. So it's really exciting to, and of course it's gonna make our roads better, particularly I think in the west part of the county. So So we were able to pull that off pretty quickly by meeting with him as a group. A couple of council members, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Rafffield, still less than a quorum. We had the discussion, we intervened, we got legal involved, and they'd already done that, and then we were able to come together and pass the fact that we wanted on the as a referendum, and it may or may not pass, but it's certainly a great opportunity for the end user kind of taxes like SPOS and eSPOS and those kind of things. So it's good.
Thank you, Sonny. Do you guys have any other questions for Sonny?
Well, I don't know if it's a question, well, maybe it is, but I would assume our treasurer would serve on that committee. If Sonny were to also serve on that committee, is there a recommendation for a third person?
I don't have one, but
I would like to
Would you like
ask,
to say?
I would like to ask the board if anybody does want to serve on that. I go with the assumption that Jay needs to serve on that as the treasurer, of course, and Sonny's expressed interest. So if any of you other board members are interested in serving on that budget committee.
Unless we feel that as the chair, you should be on that.
That's,
Makes sense.
I think you need to be.
Okay. If that's okay, I don't think that's gonna require any kind of vote. You gentlemen think that requires a
I
vote?
think we do.
I think it'd be better if we did it.
Okay,
So I'd
make a motion.
like to make a motion that we form a budget committee for purposes of preparing a budget to be presented to the city of Jasper by the end of the year. And on that committee be Dr. Proctor, Jay Cornelius, and Amy Leake.
So the motion is the formation of a budget committee consisting of Jay, Amy, and Sonny.
Do we need to amend the agenda?
I think we can still do our vote
Yeah.
without the amendment of the agenda under the financial
Just
report.
want to make sure we follow procedure.
Okay. If the motion still stands, can I get a second?
Second.
From Jack. All in favor of this motion? Aye. Any opposed? Then the motion's carried. Any discussion, I'm sorry, but, okay, motion carried.
I think that's also a good group of folks to address Jay's positive talks about the monies that we have, and I think have accumulated. And I think as we evolve this process, that's going to be a very important part of our operation, because as we evolve the Perrow process, we hope to have even greater sponsorships than what we've done in such a great way already. And we want to make sure that we're not making these decisions just for today. We're thinking about what's going to be coming down, really particularly over the next 2 to 4 years. So I think it'd be good to have that group get together pretty quickly.
So ideally, that committee would report back to the DDA prior to, right?
So ultimately, the way I would see it working is that, number one, and we're going to talk about the staff person. That staff person is going to be in charge of orchestrating and organizing a lot of these things. And then ultimately, if it is a committee of the DDA can meet and discuss and amongst themselves decide what is a feasible and admirable or advantageous proposal comes before the DDA, and then it would be voted on, and then ultimately that would go to the council. You know, it's always hard to kind of, you don't want to put the cart before the horse. So you don't want to assume that anything that we decide as the DDA is going to be decided on by the council, because there's always the chance that it won't pass. So it's always a contingency. And some people may criticize the fact that all this is happening beforehand. That's not what happens. But we do have conversations and make proposals and then act on. So.
And, sorry.
Go ahead.
Parrish, the date of the budget request for the city, what was that date?
I think it's the last week in September
Last week in September.
when they will be having people come in. And
Okay.
there'll be contact that's made in advance of that. And there'll be other people that will be included in that as well, on a little bit of a different level than what the DDA is. Those people will be dealing directly with the staff and not have decisions to make about how these funds move forward, because most of them, they may have their own way of generating funds, but it's not specifically tied to the funds that the city gives them. So it's a little bit of a different scenario. And it really is a powerful way of moving forward.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
So that committee has to come back to us as a board before our next meeting and back to you by the end of September.
The end of September, which is,
Our next meeting will be 9/22 or 9/29.
it
Is that set
would
up to
be
you?
1, 2, 3,
So
9/23.
what I would recommend is the committee kind of focus on what are the big things, if there are any, that you want. And I would focus on your entertainment season for next year, even though that would be it's going to be different next year, at least hopefully, because hopefully by that time we'll have a staff member. And then I think, as we have conversations about what went well and what didn't go so well, as it relates to Downtown Live, you may want to focus on how we can work on those things. That also ties into Perrow Park, where there may be things that, as a combination, things that we could use at Perrow Park. And I can't make these decisions, these are just suggestions. Things that we could use in that entertainment facility as it relates to our downtown.
That's why we get the dates in.
Yeah,
Trying to
yeah,
get
it's
do we
it's
get
Still will fall
a
within.
little tight.
Okay,
a week ago?
I'm pretty confident the committee can
Yeah.
get some numbers together. Jody,
Very good.
speaking.
Marty brought up the dates, so is it plausible that we can have our committee discussions, the budget committee discussions, and have a suggestion to bring to the entire board on our September 23rd meeting? And would that give you enough time, Dr. Proctor, to take it to council throughout the rest of that week? Is that enough time to get it into the process? Or do we need to act sooner?
So I think if we work hard and pass it on the 23rd, in our next meeting, or agree to it on the next meeting, that would be time, that would probably be the week you'll be presenting to the executive committee, for the city. So I think that would probably work. If something changes, Brandon's on vacation this week. If something changes, during the course of that, we could always have a special call meeting and change it.
Would that be in the form of a workshop, Sonny?
Well, the committee can meet however.
I'm not talking about the budget, I'm talking about when you meet with the executive committee.
Those will be private meetings.
That's what I thought.
It's operational stuff that's going on internal to the city. There's less than a quorum there. And so ultimately what happens is we all make a list of wants and needs. And then a lot of it, of course, is contingent on this year's budget. And then the city manager, working directly with Lindsay, goes through and makes his recommendations. So when it's presented to us, it's usually 2023, 2024 budget, 2025 request, 2025 city manager recommendation. And our budget this year, if you know that we've done some amendments, and we had a challenging budgeting year, and that's all public. And we want to make sure that we do a good job next year, and we've already put things in place. I can tell you one of Mr. Douglas's strong points is that he has the ability, when he's talking about things that we're making decisions on today, he's thinking about things 2 and 3 year budget cycles down the road. And so we have a lot of challenges in the city outside of the fun stuff that we're doing. And we're trying to form a plan that will, in a relatively short period of time, help us recover from a long period of time of not having quite so much planning as we've had in the past. So it's exciting times all the way around.
Thank you. I'm confident the new budget committee can adhere to the new budgeting process, and we appreciate that.
It doesn't have to be terribly complicated.
Implemented, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other discussions from the board as it pertains to item 1 and 2, the downtown life recap, as well as the financial report? Marty, would you like to give any updates on our bands or any other recap that you?
Just want to thank the city and the employees of the city and the board for all the great work that was done. It was a great summer, good weather, good, great band. We had a record attendance. We're looking at the schedule for next year. We set up some things for them, and people already asking when I can play and when I can set up. And you know, I've got CDs from Blue Ridge to Gainesville to wanting to know how we're doing it and how we're doing it, to having great success at it. And, I guess we'll have to go tell them that. We should have figured it out our own stuff. We'll have a couple of cities, but I think that's moving forward. It's been a great thing, and we're hoping that the park will be a future piece of our downtown experience.
Agree. So if there's nothing else about our downtown live recap for this season, we'll venture into new business with that first item of the Main Street America update from Dr. Proctor, please.
Well, I could like it tonight.
Me too.
So, Main Street America, so Jack, Amy, Parrish, Marty, Sonny, Joe, you're the newcomer relatively speaking, but we've been talking about this for a long time. And I'll let y'all know that we were accepted by the Department of Community Affairs. We're now an affiliate for the Main Street America program. And I apologize. I thought we were going to have a press release, and for whatever reason, it didn't happen. But that's okay. For the benefit of y'all and the public, Main Street America it's an organizational tool, basically what it is. And there's 4 components to it. It's planning, economic vitality, design, and historic preservation. So those are the fundamental things that we focus on. And it gives us access to sources and guidance. We're excited. I mean, it's really exciting to think that we're on this journey now. There are some pretty stringent requirements that we will have to meet as we move forward. The first thing that we will have to do, and those were all, we indicated in the application that we were willing to do those. Ultimately, there will be a memorandum of understanding where we have to promise the DCA we're going to be able to do these things. And I think from the perspective of this board, the most important things, the organizational things is we will have we'll have to choose a board, and more than likely it will be the same people you're looking at today. There may be 1 or 2 other people that we bring into it because it's a good fit. Ultimately, I will kind of leave that to Mr. Douglas's recommendation. He does have success in this in the past. Eckworth, where he spent most of his professional career, is a Gem City, which is the upper tier of Main Street USA. So there'll be a board, there'll be a planning process by which we have to come up with some sort of plan about what we hope to accomplish. There'll be education for all the board members. The education is very simple. It's very relatively inexpensive. It's online. We can do it. You can do it at your own pace. And then we will start, based on what the plan is, kind of laying out what we propose and hope to do. And of course, there's the staff person that we've been talking about for so long, and that's an absolute must. It doesn't have to be full-time. It can be part-time. But if we want to be I think the tier that we think that we want to be, it requires a full-time person, so that person will have to be full-time. And if you'd like, I just
go ahead and roll into that if you will, please.
So that was a budgeted position last year. It's still, despite our tough year and our budget amendments, that position is still budgeted. Kirk and I and Amy talked a little bit about it today. The job description was written back in the early part of the year. That may be amended to some degree based on Mr. Douglas's evaluation of where we are as a city, where we are in the process. it will absolutely in no way hinder or risk the downtown program. That will be that person's, if not their most important thing, it will be very high on the list. And I think they want to, help me out, Amy, what Kirk said, make the hire by the end of the year, is that right, or advertise by the end of the year?
Hired by January.
Okay, so, and that will be that once we make the hire, that will be, the way that will go to the people that, have connections with these type of programs. The DCA has a great, resources for people that would be interested in looking at our city, and I can tell you that, it's hard sometimes when you're in the weeds and fighting all this stuff out to realize that, you all maybe do because of your entertainment success, but we have a lot of people with their eyes on us and excited about what's happening. And that's the public, that's organizations like the Department of Community Affairs, other people, that are very pleased with the progress we're doing and how we're doing it. And that carries weight when you start, when people want to come here. So that's all I got. And that was confirmed, earlier last week when I had a conversation with Brandon about it. And, it's very, very exciting I remember being over in Rome and they say you need a full-time person. I'm like, God, we're gonna do that. And here we are, we're gonna do it.
That was a few years ago, however, but we're
It was
getting there.
2018.
So the staff member, the job description is very specific, but also broad. It's not, I just want to be clear that that's not just a position for the DDA.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
I think the bandwidth, and here's the way I look at it, at least I try to look at it, is similar to some of the other plans we're making and have been making. This is the first position that's gonna do this. I would expect if our success continues to grow, that this will ultimately be a department. And it potentially could even be, our city, we're unique in that our size really, both physically and population-wise is not huge. Even though, we're now, even though our population is a certain number, we are now looking at things as the people that we serve is really quite a bit larger through our resources and our services. So, but to have to be able to do this for a city our size is kind of unique, but it's tremendously exciting. Chances of success are really high, and it'll be fun.
Wonderful news. Thank you so much on both of those. Do any of the other board have anything they would like to say as it pertains to Main Street America or our city staffer? Jack?
Sonny, we, when was it, 3 or 4 years ago when the main guy from Main Street USA came down and we were at the technical school and met? And that was the beginning of the process, I really think.
So Amy was involved in that process. I was not.
I was too.
And so this really started when I was the chairman of the chamber board, and we'd just gone through. Well, we were actually just beginning that evolution. When we had some leadership changes in the chamber, and at my when I did our board retreat, which was at Rome, we had. And I can't remember the young lady's name, but the Main Street USA person came to speak to our board, and that was when we first started learning about it. And then when we formed our new DDA, which I believe was in 2020, and the reason I remember that is because we were on Zoom. And so that's when really we started putting together the pieces. And then it's just been an evolution since then. Little did I know that when that Georgia Power grant was given, and y'all were meeting with Dave Terry and other people at the national level, I didn't really even, I heard a little bit about it, but I was kind of deep in some other stuff at that time, and maybe distracted just a bit, but it wasn't too long after when we came out of the clouds, or out of the fog, I guess it was the DDA's always been very important to our future. And I can tell you that I think we're further along than I would have envisioned several years ago. Now, people see that and go, they don't like that idea, but it takes such a tremendous amount of planning to get to a point where we've had the success, not just on the entertainment side, but in other areas. I mean, we tried this downtown live thing, the chamber did, I think our Cinco de Mayo party, it was, 5th of May, I think there were 4 people there. I mean, it was literally, and for it to be commended in 3 years, people are looking at us. But the park thing, we didn't have the money to do it. I mean, that's the bottom line, but we made the commitment. And Kimley Horn's study, which was done initially, that really was the guideline that we took to the DCA and to the Northwest Regional Commission and Appalachian Regional Commission to organize, where they looked at what our dream was, which was from that study in our green space use. And and we haven't waited for that to happen to get moving. So, and that's the thing I think that impresses Brandon so much is, even though we're formalizing it now, we're already doing a lot of the things that other cities are doing as a part of this program. But I think what I think this is going to do is it's going to bring some people together that maybe have been a little bit on different paths. I think other groups have done great jobs. PAC has done a phenomenal job in their couple of years of doing that. And when all this for me personally started with economic development. And anytime, which is one of the components, you got to have arts, you got to have entertainment, you got to have reliable places to wine and dine. And so it's just been a systematic, and there've been some starts and stops. A lot of that I think related to city leadership, more so on the staff side than the political side. But a fairly consistent board here that's done a lot of good things. Kind of seeking your own direction and being successful at it.
Well, that's what I want to bring up is this, we just didn't start this overnight. It's been 3 or 4 years and it's been a road, and we started with planning, and so it's evolved to this, and I think everybody on this board needs to be proud of what's happened.
Well, the park started, when we went down,
Yeah.
being you and Looney and,
Amy and Marty.
who went down and saw Charlie Daniels?
And I think Marty went too.
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain I'm glad to see that Kimley Horn study that the city so graciously allowed and granted for us is still alive. That document has not gone anywhere.
Well, I shake it in their face, I promise you I do.
So that's a great segue into our next item. Those were some of the Perrow Park was one of the things that was identified in that study. When they came, they actually put boots on the ground. They come and look at your community, make the recommendations, suggestions, and said, what is this area, the old hospital that had just not been demolished too awfully long? What do you guys have a plan for? Well, there were some vacant buildings, and there was talk of restrooms, talk of other things, and they made a formal recommendation of an amphitheater based upon the topography and the way that the land already laid. It would be perfect. So that's where the idea of the Perrow Park came from, and it's still alive. I think that's been since 2014 or 15 that was even mentioned. So where are we today on our Perrow Park?
I think it was really even earlier.
It's probably earlier than that, 2008, before there was any discussion of this.
So from there, we went to, the council met with the engineering firm that was helping us initially in Savannah, and we talked about it, and which Johnny had slated Mayor Weaver had slotted that property for possibly City Hall, a fire station, public restrooms, and ultimately it evolved from there. So the Perrow Park is far from stalled, or it seems like it has stalled, because I guess as a group, the last time we met was in March of 2022 with the key stakeholders group that we had. But since that point in time, the city's organized, and with Green Shuttle's help and other people's help, we went after funding, and the first pass did not go that well, and as a matter of fact, it didn't make it past the governor's desk, and so then we reached out to our partners, Patrick Vickers, Ethan Calhoun, people at the Northwest Regional Commission, and the Appalachian Regional Commission, the people that know how to do this. We pulled Kimley Horn study out, and we kind of documented our journey from this is our vision, and how do we get there, and that included entertainment. So then we focused on the entertainment piece as it continued to grow, and then we went after the funding. The second time it was almost immediately past the governor, and it was accepted. And so the grant money, so the issue with grant money, and you hear about it, is it's bureaucracy and there's red tape. So even though things have been moving slowly, in order to do that grant, the way you have to identify the people that will help you, you have to separate yourself from the public. It has to be either staff or elected, and that make the application for those grants. And then we interviewed, I think we interviewed 10 different engineering firms for the park, just conceptual stuff. And as we eliminated it, we got to one. And then there's a process by which you have to evaluate the impact to the environment, because of where we are, the Cherokee Nation had, they found the environmental study, they found artifacts, so we had to evaluate that. So we're past that now, so all that's passed. And then 2 weeks ago, I believe tomorrow, or maybe 3 weeks ago tomorrow, we had the first conceptual meeting with the engineers. Again, that's still all internal people, because ultimately we're the decision makers. And just talking a little bit about what they envision and how they envision it. And I think the focus is going to be, not only do we want to have a great event center, we want to have a park for people that, when we're not having events there. So a nice passive park. And so where that is now is probably in the next 2, maybe 3 weeks, they'll be doing surveys out there, surveying the entire property as it relates to what DOT has brought to us. Again, there are some easements and right-of-ways that DOT is going to be having, has said that they were willing to work with us on. Basically, they take your land and pay for it. And it's really not much of an impact to the overall footprint. And it's a small area that really, a large portion of it will be taken up by sidewalks anyway. So we feel very comfortable about that. And then they're working on conceptual drawings based on what we told them we thought would fit with our culture. And then they'll bring that back to us, and that process will start. The time frame is, they said construction would probably take about a year, and we hope that 2 years from now, which I know is a long time, that we're gonna have a park. And that will be just the beginning of it. Now, in parallel with that, of course, there'll be the fact that we'll have this staff person that's starting to work on, well, how are we gonna schedule events? How are we gonna schedule the park? Not just that one, but other parks, because we have vision for our other parks as well. You hear a lot about it, and no decisions have been made, but that includes Lee Newton and the duck pond, the ball fields, all those things. We're trying to systematically work through those. And then the other component that's going to play into it long term is the fact that this SPLOST will be up in 2026. We anticipate applying for another one, so then we'll have another sum of money to work on in 2026. That will take us, hopefully, if we partner with the county, another 6 years. We still have a little bit of funds left from our 2014 SPLOST. And then on top of the fact that if this T-SPLOST passes, I think it's about $2 million a year for the city. Max, don't quote me on that because it's not scientific, it's memory, and my memory's not quite as good as it used to be. But it's a lot of money per year. Of course, for the counties, it's 4 times that or 5 times that. We get a relatively small percentage. if it passes, so we still got to pass. So it's all exciting, it is moving, you're gonna see activity there soon, and it's all good.
That is wonderful. That, circle back to that Kimley Horn study, it really emphasized not just how to maintain and manage and watch the growth of your community, but it stressed the importance of keeping those green spaces and making them, like you said, a passive park, making it utilized for everyone, not just coming in and making everything
It
industrial.
focused on the green space, it focused on wayfinding signage, gateway signage, all those things, believe it or not, we were working on, and it didn't go too far. But this time, it's gonna go.
I was gonna mention, when we were down there, we spent the night, got up the next morning, and we had exercises. We had places that we drove through town where this building needs to come down, this needs to be a parking area. We had already started developing that, it was just amazing how our minds started working. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, so I didn't participate, but actually Kirk and Amy and Dave Terry met and got us up to speed on that process. And there's also properties that have been included, properties that y'all are evaluating that, for whatever reason, the city's bought a couple of those properties. We don't have them in our possession yet, but that's not to say that some other partnerships could come about, so.
Thank you for that update.
Absolutely.
We're excited.
It's so long-winded.
Well, it's so exciting, I understand
Well,
how
people need to know
can be
that,
long.
it just didn't happen overnight, so.
Well, I can hardly wait to see what they're gonna say tomorrow. My loose tongue.
That's okay. Anything else from the board as it relates to Perrow Park? Anything from the board that you would like to speak upon that, well, we have the time. Wonderful. You sure, Parrish?
Yeah.
You're stalling?
No.
Okay. Anything else? If nothing else, I will need a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Parrish and Marty, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried for adjournment, meeting adjourned at 6:17.